I invited him inside my residence, and moments later he revealed his instrument, which astonished me with its dimensions. I had never encountered anything of that nature previously. I am a reserved woman with domestic inclinations. I have always valued the serenity of my daily life. However, I now feel obligated to share an event that has profoundly changed my perspective. An incident that occurred on an ordinary day but took an unexpected and surprising turn. I wish to recount my narrative and need your attentive, non-judgmental listening, as the account may appear unconventional. It is essential for you to recognize that I am only human, susceptible to emotions and periods of vulnerability. It was a lovely, sunny morning, and as per usual, I was at home attending to my household chores, sweeping, tidying, organizing, and cleaning, while the house was empty, my husband at work and my children at school. I utilized these periods of seclusion to immerse myself in music and the rhythm of work, akin to a therapeutic experience. I enjoy increasing the volume of dance music while rearranging furniture and allowing the melodies to soothe me as I eliminate dust and clutter. That particular morning, the music resonated throughout the house, and I was so engrossed in my task that I failed to hear the doorbell. I was in a towel, concentrating on the rhythm of the music as sunlight poured in. Through the windows, I swept the floor, unaware that my husband's friend, Oliver, had come to return the lawnmower he had borrowed a few days earlier. He attempted to contact me several times, but upon receiving no response, he opted to visit in person. After unsuccessfully ringing the doorbell multiple times, Oliver decided to leave the lawnmower in the backyard. As he passed the dining room window, he observed me dancing and cleaning, completely oblivious to his presence. The subsequent events continue to leave me somewhat unsettled when recalled. Oliver observed me for several moments, appearing captivated, perhaps even astonished, by the atypical sight of a woman seemingly so modest and restrained, moving with such abandon to the music, oblivious to the external world. He remained there for an extended period, unnoticed by me, gazing through the window. When I finally became aware of his presence, a surge of adrenaline coursed through my body. My heart raced, and my initial instinct was to shield myself with my hands, as if that would suffice to conceal the circumstance. Dressed in light casual garments suitable for home cleaning, I felt exposed and vulnerable at that moment, as if he had perceived something intrinsically mine, a facet of myself that I typically conceal from others. I swiftly donned a nightgown and, feeling somewhat apprehensive, proceeded to the backyard where Oliver was behind the lawn mower. "Oliver, what were you doing at the window?" I asked, trying to keep my tone casual, but my voice betrayed the discomfort. I felt he smiled a little awkwardly and explained that he had come to return the lawn mower and that since he had not received a response, he had decided to leave it in the yard. He mentioned that when he saw movement inside the house, he was intrigued, wondering if there might be an intruder, so he decided to watch to make sure everything was okay. Although his explanation made sense, there was something about the way he looked at me that left me feeling disconcerted. I joked, "Trying to break the ice? You looked like a burglar spying on me through the window." But his laugh seemed nervous, almost as if he were trying to disguise the tension of the moment. Then he suggested that we get a drink to cool off since the morning heat was really stifling. I agreed, somewhat unsure of what to do next, and invited him inside the house. I offered him a glass of orange juice, and he sat down on the couch, still sporting that slightly disconcerting smile on his face as he drank. He commented on how much fun it seemed to me to be so relaxed and so different from the image he had of me. She was a lady who was consistently composed, reserved, and somewhat aloof. Her praises astonished me, and I must admit, I felt somewhat gratified. It was uncommon to receive such attention, particularly from someone so intimately connected to my husband. Oliver was reluctant, as though he feared my potential misinterpretation of his remarks. Nonetheless, a glimmer in his eyes indicated a deeper sentiment he wanted to convey but struggled to articulate. I attempted to dismiss his claims, asserting that he was exaggerating and that it was really an ordinary day for me. However, he persisted, stating that something about that morning, particularly the way I moved, had inexplicably captured his attention, which caused me to feel somewhat anxious. I recognized that I was venturing into perilous territory, and an internal voice urged me to cease the conversation. However, concurrently, an insatiable curiosity and burgeoning emotion compelled me to continue. When he ultimately chose to depart, I observed his evident agitation. A palpable tension permeated the atmosphere, impacting me in an unforeseen manner. I had never felt so deeply scrutinized and desired, a sensation that evoked a complex blend of discomfort and exhilaration. Oliver advanced towards me again, and before I could respond, he kissed me. The kiss was unforeseen, and for an instant, I was utterly immobilized. My lips parted slightly, allowing the moment to envelop me. An overwhelming sense of shame swiftly followed an unexpected event I experienced. What actions had I taken? How could I have permitted this occurrence? Concurrently, however, there was a suppressed need that I could no longer restrain. Oliver appeared equally perplexed. He grasped my hand, repeatedly apologizing while I observed him, uncertain of how to respond. He kneeled before me, seeking forgiveness, and in that instant, everything felt surreal. I presented him with my childhood bracelet, which rested on a nearby shelf, as a symbolic gesture of peace, attempting to defuse the situation. He took the bracelet and smiled, and that somehow eased the tension between us. A little while later, we sat together on the couch, and for a little while we sat together on the couch, and for a brief moment we forgot everything around us. He put his toy soldier inside my doll, and that made me the most desired and loved woman in the world. For a moment, I almost cried, but I realized that it had been the best thing that had ever happened to me. From that moment on, everything changed. Dormant for a moment, I almost cried, but I realized that it had been the best thing that had ever happened to me. From that moment on, everything changed, even though it had been dormant for so long. I never thought I could feel so alive and connected to another person, especially someone who wasn't my husband, but there we were, Oliver and I, engaged in a game that somehow transcended the simple act of playing. It was as if we were exploring a new dimension, discovering a world that had always been there but that I had never noticed as time went by. I realized that I was more involved than I ever thought I would be. I felt like we were getting closer, and it scared me, but at the same time it fascinated me. When he finally got up to leave, I knew something had changed forever. I knew that somehow that day would mark a turning point in my life, something that could never be ignored again. We embraced farewell, and as he exited, I had a pang of sorrow coupled with an intense need to repeat the moment. The awakening of a previously dormant aspect of my being left me unable to ignore it. Following that day, I continually contemplated the events that transpired. It felt as though a new portal had emerged before me, beckoning me to traverse it. After Oliver exited, an unsettling silence enveloped the house. The music, which had previously infused the room with joy and rhythm, now reverberated faintly, serving as a poignant reminder of the transformation within me. I remained seated on the couch, somewhat disoriented, endeavoring to comprehend the occurrences. The warmth of Oliver's kiss lingered on my lips, while guilt began to envelop me like a dense fog. What actions had I undertaken? How could I have allowed myself to become so engrossed? I surveyed my surroundings, seeking a semblance of normalcy amidst the customary disorder of the house. Yet everything appeared altered, as though the world around me had shifted in perspective. The remorse intertwined with an unusual sense of exhilaration, something that really unsettled me. My thoughts raced in search of excuses and explanations for the recent events. It was a moment of vulnerability. I initially attributed my feelings to the heat, the music, and the solitude. However, I recognized that I was deceiving myself. The events between Oliver and me were not mere coincidences or transient errors. They represented a profound connection that had been developing imperceptibly and was now unmistakably evident. I contemplated disclosing everything to my husband, yet the mere thought induced trepidation. How could I articulate the inexplicable? How could I confess that, in a moment of recklessness, I had succumbed to an unforeseen surge of emotion? I understood that revealing this would not only obliterate the trust we shared, but also irrevocably alter his perception of me, a prospect I was unprepared to confront. I was not ready to grapple with the ramifications of my actions. In the subsequent days, I endeavored to return to my routine. I tidied the house, attended to the children, and smiled at my husband as if nothing had changed. However, I felt an open wound within me, throbbing with every memory of that kiss, that intimate moment with Oliver. Naturally, I avoided him, Whenever he visited my husband, I fabricated excuses to remain distant, thereby evading the necessity of confronting him and the emotions he might harbor. Oliver appeared to comprehend the situation, maintaining a respectful distance. Although our eyes occasionally met, we did not utter a single word regarding the incident. Nevertheless, an unmistakable tension lingered between us, an unspoken understanding that suggested this moment was merely the inception of something more significant, something we could not easily dismiss. As time progressed, I began to introspect further. Could it be that my encounter with Oliver had ignited a spark that my marriage had long failed to ignite? I loved my husband, of that I was certain. Yet the routine had become so predictable and mechanical that I questioned whether my experience with Oliver was my subconscious attempting to reveal something. Oliver, with his casual and affable demeanor, inadvertently filled an emotional void previously unknown to me. Still, I grappled with feelings of guilt and desire. Within me, I saw that the situation could not last. I recognized that accepting this new reality would constitute a betrayal of all I had constructed with my husband and family. Nonetheless, the prospect of reverting to the tedium of my former existence filled me with dread. Could I reconcile both realms? Conduct my life with responsibility while also accommodating this new emotional revelation. One evening during dinner, my husband, oblivious to the turmoil within me, casually inquired about Oliver. He noted that a friend had remarked on the enjoyment Oliver experienced during his visit that day and how he appeared unusually cheerful. The mere mention of his name triggered a surge of memories and emotions from that day. I attempted to respond nonchalantly, laughing at the situation, but internally, I felt as though I might erupt. Following dinner, I resolved that I required answers. I required insight into my own state. What did Oliver signify? Was it merely a transient escape or a physical allure? Or was there a more profound aspect that I was reluctant to acknowledge? A few days later, I mustered the courage to pursue Oliver. I recognized the potential consequences of my actions, yet an internal compulsion urged me to seek clarity. I sought to comprehend the events that transpired and their profound impact on me. I located him at the coffee shop he frequented on weekends. Upon seeing me, his eyes widened in astonishment, but soon his characteristic smile emerged. We occupied a table in the corner, shielded from the inquisitive stares of other patrons. For a time, we remained silent, uncertain of how to initiate the conversation. I anxiously fidgeted with a cup of coffee before me while Oliver observed me with a gaze that invariably unsettled me. Ultimately, he shattered the stillness. "Are you well?" he inquired. His voice was kind yet imbued with a note of apprehension. I inhaled deeply, attempting to articulate the appropriate words. "Oliver, we must discuss the events of that day." He nodded, as if he had anticipated this conversation. He acknowledged the unexpected nature of the situation and asked you not to assume he was trying before he finished his thought. I interrupted him. "No, Ro. I am not here to assign blame. I seek to comprehend the implications for both myself and you." He remained silent for some seconds, evidently contemplating his response. To be candid, I am uncertain about what to articulate. It was a fleeting impulse. However, I cannot deny that I have been unable to cease contemplating you since that time. His words struck me with the force of a wave. I sensed an intangible presence beyond the physical realm. Oliver's honesty exacerbated the situation. I have also been contemplating it extensively. I admitted my feelings, although we cannot continue in this manner. I possess a family and a spouse. I cannot simply discard all of that. He agreed once more. I understand I don't want to cause conflict with your spouse, but I can't ignore my feelings. The burden of reality descended upon us at that time. We acknowledged the presence of an extraordinary force that defied easy dismissal or eradication, but we also understood the dire consequences of following that path. We sat there in silence, both lost in our thoughts, trying to find a way to move on without hurting ourselves or those we loved. We decided that, as difficult as it was, the best thing to do was to walk away. There was no other solution. I needed to focus on my family and my marriage, and he needed to focus on his own life. But that mutual understanding and conversation brought us both a sense of peace, as if we had finally concluded a chapter in my daily life. I tried to bury the memories of that day with Oliver. Little by little, I returned to my routine, focusing on what really mattered, but deep down, I knew that that episode, that sunny morning, had left an indelible mark on me. A part of me would always remember Oliver and how he made me feel alive, but now more than ever, I understood that some emotions, no matter how intense, needed to be left behind as they always do. My marriage continued, and I worked hard to strengthen the bonds with my husband, trying to rediscover what united us and what made us partners. But that morning with Oliver would remain forever as a memory kept in a secret corner of my heart.